All right, guys, so I stumbled across this hilarious clip in which Brian Stelter once again gets owned to his face. Bruh, I don't know what's up with Brian Stelter getting like owned like every other week. Like that's kind of what it seems like. Everybody's just coming after this guy, right? He's just a target, right? For whatever reason. I do know why, because he is probably one of the worst journalists on television, okay? He really is. He's just easy to make fun of. But in this situation right here, Brian Stelter is going to have a Yale researcher on his show to discuss a study that they did about media bias. Okay, now Brian Stelter's show, Reliable Sources, aka Unreliable Sources, really, it's supposed to be all about covering the media. Okay, and doing this study from Yale, they basically found the obvious, which is that these media outlets, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, they all have bias, political bias, when it comes to supporting a certain political party, right? We all know that Fox News is biased towards Republicans, and we know that CNN and MSNBC is biased towards the Democrats. We all know that. I mean, that's very obvious, okay? But for whatever reason, Brian Stelter, in his world, he does not believe that CNN is biased, right? He does not believe that CNN has any slant whatsoever towards a certain political party, and they're just covering objective truths in reality, okay? That's what Brian Stelter believes, even though everybody in the world can see that CNN is obviously a Democrat propaganda arm, okay? So this Yale researcher burst Brian Stelter's bubble in this segment, and it is absolutely hilarious. Take a look.
Josh, you all call this partisan coverage filtering. And basically you're proving what we've sensed for a while, which is Fox viewers are in the dark about bad news for the GOP.
That's right. Fox and CNN cover different issues, and Fox News predominantly covers issues that make the GOP look good and make Democrats look bad. And on the flip side, CNN engages in this partisan coverage filtering as well that we find. For example, during this time, the Abraham Accords were signed, and these were the agreements where Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain signed a major peace agreement. And we see that Fox News covered this really major accomplishment about 15 times more than CNN did. So we established both networks are really engaging in this partisan coverage filtering. It's not about one side, it's about the media writ large.
I think you're engaging in some both sidesism there, Josh.
Not trying to lay out a moral equivalency. It's not about what an objective standard is. It's really about how all networks do engage in this. And in order for viewers to get a realistic picture of the world, we need viewers to see all types of information. And unfortunately, what we find in this study is that the viewers don't want to engage in watching all sides. So as David mentioned, we see that viewers, we pay them for 4 weeks to watch CNN. But then after those payments stop, they go back to watching Fox News. So even though we try to incentivize viewers to watch both Fox and CNN, they don't want to engage in that hard work. They want to really just watch the side that makes them feel good. And this is why the media has such an important responsibility to cover both sides, to hold both parties accountable.
Yeah, so that clip is hilarious for multiple reasons, right? The main reason being the body language of the individuals in that clip. I saw some very strange head motions and all types of stuff going on. I'm not really going to get into too much. I want to talk about the substance here, because Brian Stelter, this guy, he's really the creepiest guy on television, to be quite honest with you. But this dude he really thought that these Yale researchers were just going to come on and bash Fox News and say, you know, these people that watch Fox News are ignorant, right? They are shielded from what is really happening in the world, because Fox News, all they do is cape for the Republicans, okay? That's what he thought was going to happen here, okay? And he even, again, loaded up a question for the Yale researcher to basically confirm that. I mean, because that's his whole MO. His whole show is, I cover the media, and I'm telling you guys that Fox News is bad. Okay, even though it seems like he does more covering of the bad things going on his own network than he does at Fox News, considering all the scandals that are involved in CNN, right? But this researcher, even though he's teed up from Brian Stelter to basically try to support the idea that, you know, Fox News is the only network out here that does this, right? That's biased like this. he doesn't go for the bait. He actually says, well, CNN actually does the same thing too, right? CNN is out here making the Democrats look favorable and making Republicans look bad, right? They cover news stories based off that, right? It's just not Fox News viewers that are in the dark about certain issues and subjects, right? That is what he's saying. And Brian Stelter, he didn't like that. So in order to try to kind of deflect that criticism there, he says, well, it sounds like you're engaging in a little bit of both sidesism here. Right? That's what they say. Right? He's basically saying, no, bro, stick to the script. We're talking about Fox News. I didn't bring you up here to talk about CNN, right? To call us out on our BS, right? And that's the hilarious part about all this stuff. Because CNN is, in fact, an arm of the Democrat Party. Okay, they're a part of the Democrat propaganda machine, right? That guy brought up the example of the peace deals in the Middle East, right? Y'all know the deals that was negotiated between the Trump administration, Saudi Arabia, Israel, all that stuff. CNN, according to him, barely covered it, right? Fox News covered it a lot. Well, why was that? Because peace in the Middle East is kind of a big deal, right? And obviously it makes Trump look good. It makes Republicans look good. So Fox News covered it a lot, okay? CNN, on the other hand, because they had Trump derangement syndrome, and they don't want to cover anything positive about Trump, even if it is objectively good. I mean, I don't know who can disagree with having peace in the Middle East. They decide, hey, you know what? Our viewers don't need to know about this, right? Our viewers don't need to know about this. Let's sweep this good news under the rug here. Let's not talk about it, right? Because it doesn't make Orange Man look like the worst president in the history of the United States. MSNBC does the same thing when it comes to certain stories, right? Like the Waukesha Christmas parade, right? Black man runs over grandmas doing a Christmas parade. They're like, we don't really need to talk about that. Let's not talk about it. It doesn't fit the narrative that we want. Okay, but if it was a white person that did that, they'd be all over it. Okay, Fox News, they do the same thing. Okay, for example, when it comes to the January 6th stuff. Okay, obviously, Fox News is not really going to be covering the whole January 6th committees and what's going on in Congress and all that stuff. They're not going to cover it that much. Okay, because it's not something that viewers probably want to hear about. Okay, even though in Fox News' defense of them not covering that, I think that stuff is bogus. Okay, a lot of January 6th stuff, right, in regards to the committees and all that stuff. Now, when it comes to the actual riot, protest, whatever you want to call it, I think that it was obviously a protest that got out of hand. And I think that the liberal media trying to play it up as some type of conspiracy by the Republican Party, I think is ridiculous, right? So I do think coverage in general of January 6th is kind of overblown, but I'm just saying, Fox News, they ain't gonna cover it the same way that CNN or MSNBC is gonna cover it. You see what I'm saying? That's just what it is. All these networks engage in that. Okay, and at the very least, Fox News and MSNBC, they're not really out here trying to pretend like they're not biased, right? Like, everybody knows they're biased, and they don't really deny their bias, okay? At least not to the extent that CNN does, right? CNN goes out of their way to say, we're neutral, right? We are neutral. We have no bias whatsoever. We're calling it straight down the middle, when that is obviously not the case. Even though I will say CNN used to be closer to that than they are today. I'll actually give you an example. One of my favorite Don Lemon segments ever, back when he was a lackey having a weekend show on CNN, he actually went on air and agreed with Bill O'Reilly in the midst of the whole Trayvon Martin stuff, and actually came out here and said that, hey, these are issues in Black America and that young black men need to pull their pants up. Take a look.
The reason there is so much violence and chaos in the black precincts is the disintegration of the African American family.
He's got a point. In fact, he's got more than a point. Bill?
Raised without much structure, young black men often reject education and gravitate towards the street culture, drugs, hustling, gangs. Nobody forces them to do that. Again, it is a personal decision.
He is right about that too. But in my estimation, he doesn't go far enough. Because black people, if you really want to fix the problem, here's just 5 things that you should think about doing. Here's number 5. And if this doesn't apply to you, if you're not doing this, then it doesn't apply to you. I'm not talking about you. Here's number 5. Pull up your pants. Some people, a lot of them black, gave me flack for saying that recently on the Wendy Williams show. If you're sagging, it means I think your self-esteem is sagging and who you are as a person, it's sagging. Young people need to be taught respect, and there are rules. Sagging pants, whether it's Justin Bieber or no-name Derek around the way, walking around with your ass and your underwear showing is not okay. In fact, it comes from prison when they take away belts from the prisoner so that they can't make a weapon. And then it evolved into which role a prisoner would have during male-on-male prison sex. The one with the really low pants is a submissive one. You get my point?
Guys, could Don Lemon or CNN ever run a segment like that in 2022? No. Hell no. Okay, if they did, whoever ran that segment will be fired. Okay, everybody associated with that segment will be fired immediately. Okay, they would never do that in 2022. But that was back like doing 2012, 2013. Okay. Back when, again, CNN used to be closer to the middle, right? But for whatever reason, they decided that sometime after Trump got in office, when Trump decided to run for president, that they were just going to go full on Democrat propaganda machine because Trump evil. And by definition, whatever Trump does, whether it's good or bad, objectively, it's just objectively bad to them because Trump is evil, right? Just like, again, the peace deals in the Middle East. How they was like, we're not really going to cover this. We're not really going to talk about it, even though, we haven't necessarily had peace in the Middle East until Trump was actually president. Guess what? As soon as Trump's out of office, no more peace in the Middle East. We're not going to talk about it. Our viewers don't need to know about it, right? Because Trump bad, Orange Man bad, right? And they decided to go for that. And that worked for them for a minute when it came to the ratings. They got high off of it. They drunk the Kool-Aid because everybody was so against Trump. Everybody hated Trump so much, and people watch CNN for the Trump hate. Now that the guy is out of office, their fan base that they built up just hating Trump all day, they don't really want to watch CNN anymore, right? They don't want to watch CNN because they never came to CNN in the first place for objective facts and analysis or, neutral opinion. They never came to CNN for that. They came to CNN for Trump hate 24/7, right? And now they don't really get that anymore. They can't really get that anymore because Trump's not in office. That's why they relegate themselves to talk about January 6th all day. That's the closest thing they can get to bashing Trump. That or Fox News or Tucker Carlson or something like that, right? That's what they do. So with that being said, I just found that segment hilarious in regards to Brian Stelter once again getting owned to his face on the fact that CNN is in fact a Democrat propaganda machine. And for whatever reason, this guy is just continuously trying to deny that and act like CNN is such an objective news network, and it's just not, right? They're just like everybody else. It is what it is. Just own up to it, bro. Own up to it. It'll make you more credible, right? Because you have no credibility whatsoever right now. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.